Y'all ready for this? Welcome to Sports Kid Drama Kid. I'm Jim. I'm the Sports Kid.
I'm Andi. I'm the Drama Kid.
Today, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to dive into our first exercise program.
Oh, man.
And we're going to do that with CrossFit.
Oh, no. Okay.
What do you know about CrossFit, Andi?
Just a bunch of videos on social media that I don't care to watch mostly. I know that it is like a company, but also like a philosophy of exercise of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as I can tell, they're like those gyms that you walk by that don't look like they have anything in them. You know what I mean? It's like a gym with like gymnastics mats and then like big disc weights.
Mm-hmm.
And like some, what are they, squat racks?
Yeah.
Or whatever. It looks like a very sort of boring empty space gym. And then you have people doing things like shaking really heavy ropes.
Yeah.
And then like pushing things or like, big tires.
Yeah.
It's sort of like what I assume a lumberjack contest is with like the most annoying personal training.
Yeah, with like less beards and axes.
I don't know. I feel like I've seen beardy people. I've never seen an axe in like a CrossFit Instagram reel, but
You wouldn't put it past them?
I also am like unclear about what is CrossFit and what is not, because I feel like I have had like acquaintances on social media who post their gains or whatever, and I just think that they're like weightlifting, and then I see that they're like ranked in CrossFit or they did some like CrossFit contest, and I'm like, oh, that's like what? I don't really know what makes CrossFit and not any exercise. The other thing I want to say is a lot of it looks like exercise that would harm a person's body.
Okay.
Like when I've seen someone do those like weird pull-ups where they're just like jerking themselves around, I'm like, I would get like a neck issue from that. Like I get neck issues from like sleeping weird.
That's the perfect setup, because today we're going to go into all those things, how it started and sort of the drama within CrossFit, which there is plenty of.
I can't wait.
And this is a perfect time for a little disclaimer. I don't care how you work out. Andi doesn't care how you work out.
Sure don't.
We aren't critiquing CrossFit as a workout. Actually, some of the stuff looks really fun, and I do stuff at the gym that's like adjacent to this type of stuff.
Any way you enjoy moving your body or not moving your body, like you do you. We don't care at all.
Yeah.
There's
so
no judgment.
That disclaimer aside, it's more about CrossFit, the institution, the founding, the founder, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing today.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm going to start this with an essay, a little personal monologue, which I haven't done in a minute.
You
and
haven't.
I'm
I
very
love
excited
them.
about. Okay. So I'm going to do that now. Picture a depressed 25-year-old man shoved into a studio apartment that doesn't accommodate his stature. The man has 2 BA degrees and 0 prescribed anxiety medication. On his bookshelf are the works of David Foster Wallace, Philip Roth, and Henry David Thoreau. He lives in Madison, Wisconsin, and works at a craft brewery with a Walmart-sized parking lot, serving and consuming IPAs brewed with enough hops to kill someone without a beard. This man is thinking big thoughts and getting small results. That man was me in 2013, and when I finally did open all those books, it was Henry David Thoreau's Walden that really spoke to me and my broken spirit. If you're not a confused white man in his 20s with as many empty growlers as flannel shirts, Walden is a book about Thoreau going off the grid, leaving it all behind, and hand-building a life in a humble cabin by a pond. At some point during my reading of Walden, I was inspired to get in on the action. Or inaction, really. I didn't have a personal relationship with Ralph Waldo Emerson or a vacant plot of land by a river, but I did live in a city that was the physical embodiment of a song by Mumford & Sons. So I went to Google and I typed in something that AI would probably infer nowadays. Organic farm near me. The results were staggering. Madison at this time was an episode of Portlandia and the lyrics of every Tallest Man on Earth song combined into a mead of Midwestern hipness. Everybody was farming and pickling and sourdough startering everywhere around me. I found a farm in the neighboring town of Wanakee, sent an email, and woke up the next day to an invite to be part of their worker share program for the summer. And just like that, this just out of college boy became a farming man.
Quick aside, did you just throw in and just like that for the Carrie Bradshaw of it all?
I did not.
It's getting in.
The deal with this farm was, if I helped do farm things for a few hours each week, I would get a big box of vegetables. I picked peas, harvested cucumbers, pounded steaks for a tomato hothouse, and lopped greens from the ground with a sharp knife. In return, I'd get a box of kale, garlic, and way too much kohlrabi. Seriously, what do you do with it?
I don't know.
The work was hard, but the environment was beautiful. At the end of a long driveway, the farm opened into a rolling meadow where all the crops grew and we worked. And the whole experience was great outdoor exercise. But for many of the full-time employees of the farm, the work was only part of the exercise that they were doing. Every day when we rinsed radishes or packed produce, the core group of farmers discussed their WODs. WODs, as I learned through my eavesdropping, are CrossFit for Workout of the Day. It turned out that one of the primary workers on the farm was also a co-owner of a nearby CrossFit affiliate gym, or box, as they are called by the CrossFit enthusiasts. Those who attended the box after a day of working on the farm talked a lot about burpees and pull-ups in that way that people complain about being sore after difficult workouts, just to ensure that everyone else knows how hard they worked out. But they also talked about farming and sustainability and fresh eggs from chickens that clucked nearby while we picked strawberries on a dewy morning. As we snacked on fresh fruit, the farmers fantasized about living on a farm full-time someday. They were learning how to build a yurt, which they planned to plop down on the property as a fortress from the grid of modernity. The farmers were pretentious, but the life they imagined for themselves, and in many ways were living, was admirable. I went as far as sending an email to the head farmer asking how I could work with them in a more full-time capacity.
Oh my God.
But they didn't have anything for me. Not at the moment, at least. So I moved on. I searched for the farm while writing this essay, and it doesn't exist anymore. I hope the farm closed because the community began. These people were tight-knit, and they weren't easy to befriend, so I never joined them for a WOD. I felt like the unpopular random guy, even amongst CrossFit communists. But in an alternate timeline, I definitely joined their box, lived on that farm, with a minuscule carbon footprint and massive lats.
Oh my God.
And that's my little story about.
I thought at the beginning that was going to go in a totally different direction. I thought you were going to talk about your P90X moment in your tiny studio apartment in Chicago.
I did do that as well.
Which also happened before you met me. But that's where I thought we were going at first, because I do remember you talking about that.
Yeah, when I showed up in Chicago to do improv comedy, with all my free time, I started doing P90X in my studio apartment.
I don't know. Is that story all that different than the one you just told?
No.
It had the same beginning and end. The middle was just
slightly different.
The means to the end were slightly different.
But yeah, that's how I found out about CrossFit.
Yeah.
Was from those guys,
yeah.
Pretty much. So CrossFit, what is it? It's a fitness program and brand that involves constantly varied functional movements performed at high intensity.
Okay.
It incorporates interval training, Olympic weightlifting, plyometrics, powerlifting, gymnastics, kettlebells, calisthenics, and strongman event type lifts.
What is plyometrics?
Plyometrics is, if I remember from P90X, jumping workouts.
Oh.
Like leaving the ground, back and forth stepping, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, I'm thinking of calisthenics, which is like using your body weight,
yes,
right?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
It's all kind of in the gymnastics, Olympic sort of realm. But the big thing is that they vary it up a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The workout itself, I had to look this up because, like you said, you hear a lot of things about what it is.
Yeah.
And I never knew this even when I was hearing about WODs from hipster farmers. It's usually done in 4 steps, apparently. There's a warm-up, 2 minutes or so on a bike, a rower, or jogging or whatever.
Okay.
And then there's a strength portion, and that's usually like one main lift. And a lot of times, if you're newer, you're just focusing on like form and getting it right. But as you grow, you are mostly focused on intensity, just like something they throw around a lot, which is like pushing your max limits.
Oh, okay. I was like, does that mean adding more weight or more reps?
More
or...
weight, usually more weight
Okay.
and less reps.
Okay.
So, yeah. And then after the strength portion, which they include every workout, there's the WOD, which is the main part.
We're not in the WOD yet?
No, we're not in the WOD yet. That's like, you usually do one lift.
Okay.
And then you go to the WOD. And that's 20 to 30 minutes of interval training. And that's where the box owners kind of get creative. And it's like they throw in 3 or 4 different exercises you do in a rotation.
Is it like a circuit?
Yeah.
Got it.
And then a cool down with a foam roller.
That part. I like that part.
I always see those foam rollers, and I've never sort of asked anyone or looked it up how to like really
how to use one.
Those.
You just kind of roll it, man.
I know, but it seems like there's a specific way.
Yeah, there's always somebody in like a position where they're like getting their quad while like holding themselves up just by like their forearm.
Yeah, it seems like a workout just to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's kind of the gist of it. Any questions?
No, I mean, it sounds like, as you know, I have participated in my fair share of, I don't want to say culty exercise, but like exercise that you need to buy into like the whole philosophy of, I guess. Like I did bar for about a year and belonged to a bar studio. And it's a similar kind of thing where like every gym or type of workout has their own, like, this is how we do things here. And it's funny because like I've sampled a number of bar studios and it's like, it's all the same stuff. But if you go to one or the other, they're like, we do things a little bit differently here. And it's like, it just, they put it in a different order or
yeah, or the music's different.
The way they get you in is like, this is the specific way you work out. These are the processes. These are the lingo, the jargon.
And why it works and why it's proven to be so good. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's always something. I'm sure there's something here, like similar to like an Orange Theory or something where they're like, we get your heart in like the exact right zone where it's like just about to explode, but not yet.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah. Almost exploding is where you get the most amount of fat off your body.
Yes. Hospitalization.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to talk about the founding of the actual institution of CrossFit. And it goes back kind of a lot further than I knew. It was founded by a man named Greg Glassman. He's a former gymnast, but I'm going to let Greg Glassman himself tell you about this through a little video that CrossFit put on their YouTube page. And this is him sort of talking about the beginning of what he calls Fran, which is like a name he gave to the first CrossFit workout. But this is also sort of the origin of CrossFit.
Is that another acronym?
No,
something?
I don't think it is. And he'll tell you that. It's a little bit of a long video, but we'll jump around a little bit.
Okay.
Do you have 3 WODs that you're the most proud of?
Fran and Fran, I don't know. I hate that thing. As a young gymnast and just new to high school, I entertained the notion I could become a stronger gymnast with weights, and the conclusion of that experiment was fuck yeah, and surprisingly, it was really hard to communicate to other gymnasts that you should be lifting weights.
Can you pause it?
And there were things you could develop.
Why is he saying gymnast like that?
I guess that's the way he says it, and it's supposed to be said. Gymnast.
That to me feels like a weird power move where he's gaslighting everyone into thinking that like that's how you say that word by just always saying it that way, and he's in a position of power, so no one's gonna correct him.
Yeah.
Like I bet you he also gets people's names wrong.
Intentionally?
Yeah, like someone was like, I thought your name was Melissa. He's like, yeah, but he's been calling me
Mel Isa for a long time.
So that's how everybody here knows me.
But anyways, old man was cool enough to back the station wagon out of the garage and clean it up for me and let me convert it into a weight training facility. And this was in 1972, 71, 72. And it took me down to Sears, and for $19.95, 110-pound weight set. And it was a Ted Williams, the baseball player, had to put his name on a weight set. I was a competitive gymnast, and I needed something that would make you sit on your ass and gasp for air, simulating 2-minute ring routine, P-bar routine, and that's what they would do early in the season, right? early in the season, they were brutal in terms of the.
This is like hard to watch because he's kind of just rambling.
Yeah.
Like, and that egregious edit, which is like, this is clearly two different videos that are being cut between. He's like, my dad took me to Sears and I got this pair of weights.
And he's clearly been telling this story and not getting any more
lucid
good at telling it.
No one doubts it. Gymnasts have to be strong. And if you get off the apparatus and you're hunched over or you vomit or you're gape mouth breathing hard, wild and tear, you will be deducted for that. And so you have to get off and look cool as a cucumber, like that was fun. or it's held against you, and so the conditioning was a critical component. Well, I'm looking through this Ted Williams Guide to Weightlifting, and the morons doing lateral raises and curls, and I'm like, that's got none of the feeling. There's no amount of lateral raises or curls that's going to sum to what I feel when I do this. And so I just stumbled across, well, if you bring the bar to the chest and get as low as you can and drive it to overhead, the thruster is born. That's 10 of those takes me towards that feeling. So I don't know where it came from, but I did 21 of these thrusters and 21 pull-ups and 15 of each, 9 of each, and unceremoniously threw up all over the garage floor. I went over to across the street and knocked on my buddy's door. Brian is a fellow gymnast, and he answers the door. He's, dude, what's all over your shirt? I'm like, never mind that, come with me. And a trainer is born, right? And we did the same thing, and he did the same thing. And we cleaned up, and I go, let's go get your brother. And we went and go into the house and go to his brother's room, and he's like, what's on you guys? You smell like vomit.
Both threw up?
Come on.
In the story.
So, And much of what we see everywhere today, I saw that day. That's about the numbers and how it plays out. And
What?
A workout was born, and I hate that thing.
What about the name? Where'd Frank come from?
You'd say, okay, you're going to do 21 thrusters. What's that? Okay, well, actually, it's 21 front squat with a follow-through press, and then in a contiguous set, and then the following set, you're going to do 21 pull-ups, and you have to complete all 21 because you go to the next exercise, break it up anywhere you want, blah, blah, blah. It takes 5 minutes to explain the fucker. I want to explain it once and give it a name. And I thought that anything that left you flat on your back looking up at the sky, asking what the fuck happened to me deserved a female's name.
I knew you would roll your eyes at that.
Right? Yeah, what happened to me? And
hate it.
Girlfriends, and it's just like storms, If a hurricane that wreaks havoc and the whole town can be Fran, so could a workout.
All right, sorry, that was a little long, but it felt like it really set the table for who this guy is.
It does set the table for who this guy is. Okay, couple reactions. He is not well spoken. If I were in whatever this weird meeting was, I would probably get so fucking bored and be like trying to play a stupid game on my phone because he's so boring. He does that thing that like boomer men do where like they're talking and they haven't actually made a point, and then they just sort of like mumble a little bit and they're like, yeah, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I don't know what you just said.
Well, I think part of that is he's talking to like CrossFit acolytes. So anything he says, even though it's not that coherent, if you're just watching it for the first time, they're all eating it up.
Yeah. I mean, it reminds me honestly of like cult documentaries I've watched where I'm like, the person in charge, I don't know how you're all interested in this person. That aside, too much vomiting. I don't know why, if you encountered someone who had clearly just vomited, would you then want to do the thing that they just did to vomit?
I guess a certain type of person would, and that's why they like CrossFit.
Ugh, I hate that.
I think probably what that was he made an appearance and graced a random box with his presence. And he was just giving his little spiel to them like, hey, thanks for, putting up a good box.
Yeah. Also, I absolutely hate the like, if we can name hurricanes after bitches, we can name exercise.
Oh my God. And that comment in particular sort of sets a table for who this guy is.
Yeah.
So as he said, he was starting this in his garage, puking with his friend and his friend's brother in 1979 or whatever that was. But in 1996 is when he sort of turned it into a business for the first time. This workout that he developed as a gymnast. And then in 2000, Greg Glassman and his girlfriend or wife, would become wife, Lauren Janai, incorporated CrossFit Inc. and opened a gym in Santa Cruz, California in 2001 and started posting their workouts on the internet. And then they were adopted by individuals, but then heavily by police departments, the military, and like firefighting departments.
Oh, interesting.
As group sort of things to do for training.
Okay.
Yeah. Lauren was Glassman's wife and co-founder, and I found a clip from the Wadcast podcast more recently, 5 years ago, on which she talked about meeting Greg and starting CrossFit.
You know, met Greg and I started eating differently and just thrived, and also just became super infatuated with the whole fucking concept. And first time I worked out with Greg, it was the first time I'd ever been sore from exercise in my time. And I mean, you know, I literally was a couch potato, and I went through Greg training me.
And this is Gold's Gym in
Santa Cruz. And I was beyond sore, like really, really sore. And it's funny because I had a girlfriend who also trained with him, like I think that same week, and she got equally sore, similarly sore. Yeah. And I was just like, isn't it awesome? And she's like, he wanted to kill me. I hate him. And I was like, that's the CrossFit divide with CrossFitters, non-CrossFitters, people who love that shit and people who don't.
The sadists. Yeah, there is something sadistic.
But I got it. I was like, that's where happiness lives. He came to the table with a really unique approach because he had the background of being a gym. I mean, I'm sure CrossFitters have heard this, but you know, he was a gymnast in high school.
I like how you say gymnast. He was at Pepperdine the other night, and I was there because I live right near there. My friend from CrossFit Malibu had him there. And I went down to watch, and he says gymnast.
Yes. Well, yes, gymnast. I'm surprised that hasn't stuck with me.
And I was like, have I been saying it wrong my whole life? Because I was on a...
Well, I think it's an East Coast thing.
It's not an East Coast thing.
When I heard Greg say gymnast, I was like, have I been offending every gymnast?
Perhaps. And that's the difference between CrossFitters and the rest of us. Because I heard it and I said, that's not how you say that word.
I couldn't wait to get to that.
Probably one of the reasons he thrived as a gymnast in high school is he started lifting weights, which was a little bit more uncommon at the time. And he got, I think his dad bought him a set of Sears dumbbells or something. He started
she knows it.
Mimicking the gymnastics moves with the dumbbell. To supplement what he was doing for gymnastics, and like just became uber strong.
Right.
And so, like, you know, he would hang out with his friends. He would be stronger than, you know, he wouldn't be stronger than his powerlifting friends, but he was stronger than his cyclist friends, or you know, or maybe even his gymnast friends. And you know, his cycling friends obviously were faster on a bike than him, but you know, his weightlifting friends, or you know.
I like how this whole conversation is just like, he's stronger and faster than these people, but maybe not stronger and faster. Like, what? Yeah. Who cares?
You know, Greg came to the table with a lot of information, a lot of experience, a lot of passion, but didn't necessarily have a business model. And when I got involved, you know, he was a trainer. Mm-hmm. You know, he's a great trainer. He had some amazing changes in the people he's worked with, but business model wise, that's something that he and I developed over years. He'll tell you this story to this day. He's like, people say, "Do you ever think they'd be this successful?" And he's like, "I didn't, but she did. She always knew." And I did, because I had that personal experience.
It's got to be mind-blowing for you.
Oh, yeah. You don't even know.
Around
you don't even know.
Everywhere, airports, wherever you go, and just seeing T-shirts.
You don't know.
It's
you don't know. It is. I mean, even to this day, it's still like.
It's got to freak you out.
Oh, it does freak me out. Like, it's completely, especially since I'm not involved, because that's one of the things that really, the dynamic change was really interesting, because, you know, CrossFit sometimes gets criticized for being a cult.
Yeah.
Kind of. Like, there is that aspect.
I know.
All right, we'll stop there because we don't want to get too far into the
She's
future.
no longer involved,
Yes, little teaser. So what are your thoughts?
Little female hurricane comes in and plans your whole business.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Lauren Janai?
She seems fine. I am at a moment in my personal life where I am a little bit suspicious of people who seem to equate exercise with, I don't know, like some kind of like moral righteousness or like spiritual success. I'm not phrasing this well, but you kind of get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm at a point in my life where like I am very suspicious of that. Usually I get the sense when people are like, this changed my life. It made you thinner. It made you a smaller person, and it made you feel more socially accepted because you had a smaller, more by societal standards, physically fit body. And that made you feel a sense of euphoria because we live in a terrible world where...
Because you were trying to do that for your whole life, and then this worked for that.
So I take issue with that, which is not about her personally. It's just about like culty exercise in general. I think she's pretty well spoken. I think she's pretty candid. Honestly, neither her nor him seem like the kind of people who like want to be sort of like figureheads or cult leaders, as it were. Like they do seem just like people who like exercise and saw a business opportunity. So like I will say that they don't seem like bad people. Do they seem like people that like I would want to like give my money to? Not necessarily, but like I also don't want to do CrossFit. So
yeah. Okay. That's a good check-in point.
Sure.
So the first affiliated gym, again known as a box, was CrossFit North in Seattle, Washington. And this was sort of using Greg Glassman's internet postings of workouts and sort of incorporating those into a plan.
So like what year was this?
2002.
So I wonder like where on the internet he was posting
Probably
this.
CrossFit like website, just blog.
Interesting.
Yeah, forum.
Remember when in order to see something, you had to be like, I need to go to a specific website that has my personal interests on it instead of just like, I'll just go on the internet and see what comes up.
In a way, I kind of miss that.
It? Yeah, I know.
Because it's cool that you could just go to like one little community. And now, you know, there's all those things that you can find on the internet that do that, but not maybe in such a sort of chill way.
Yeah, like in 2002, I was probably like frequenting like the Garfield website because there were games you could play.
Yeah. So a little bit about the business model. As Lauren mentioned in that interview, she was the main one to sort of see the business opportunities. There's three main revenue streams for CrossFit: affiliation, education, and like sport and game versions of it. CrossFit licenses its name to affiliated gyms for an annual fee. And in order to do it, you need to pass like a certain amount of like classes. You used to only have to pass like level 1, which is really basic, and they got criticism for that. But now you have to pass level 2. And so they sell you the class and you have to pay them to use the CrossFit name for your gym. And that's how you become like an affiliate.
Listen, if you want to teach improv, you have to take more than level 1.
Seriously, it's the same. At its peak in 2018, there were over 15,000 CrossFit affiliates in 162 countries. That is the gyms that you would see all around. And it's not that hard of a bar to cross besides putting some bars in a box and getting
doing CrossFit.
Yeah. Yeah. It provides training courses, which they also charge for. And yeah, that's how the business kind of works, is this affiliate model, similar to like, I don't know, if you and your friends got together and bought a KFC.
Yeah, I was about to say like Subway. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't seem too MLM-y. Like you're not selling fake stuff for the most part. Yeah.
The affiliate model is different than a franchise model because the gyms have complete freedom to kind of do what they want with it.
Oh, so they don't have a franchise model?
Not really. It's like you just basically license the name and then the general techniques and do your own thing.
Is that because like legally if something bad happens in one of the affiliate gyms, they're ultimately not responsible?
This will come up. This will come up.
I feel like the older I get, I just get more and more skeptical. I'm like, why'd you arrange your business like that? Is it so that you're not liable? Okay.
Okay. So when the number of gyms was growing, there were 13 in 2005, 8,000 in 2013,
oh my God,
and then more than 13,000 in 2016.
Wow.
And then, like I said earlier, it went up to like in the 15,000 range. Its membership worldwide has been estimated to be between 2 and 5 million, depending on the time. From everything that I've read and watched, people like CrossFit because of the community aspect of having all these people. The hard workouts, as they mentioned, the variety of unknown aspects in the WODs where you show up and every day that WOD portion is different. So you're kind of getting the surprise factor. And then lastly, like the ability to shop around with the different affiliate gyms and find a group that like fits your vibe or whatever.
I mean, I can understand all of that. Like working out, having people there who will, number one, motivate you to go, or who you like seeing and like spending time with, like the social aspect, like for sure. Like that was something I did not have when I was taking bar classes, because like you just, I mean, I'm sure it's a similar for like a Soul Cycle or something. You go in, it's like a dark room with like some like black lights. You are on your own. You're not no one was there to make friends.
You're in a little pod of exercise.
Yeah. So I understand the social aspect being cool. I also understand like, I don't want to work out to the point of throwing up, but like there is such a thing as like a runner's high or like exercise euphoria. Like when you push your body super hard, like it does feel, you get endorphins, like obviously.
I like need to go every day, and it's not even really tied. I mean, I'm sure it is tied to like body image stuff.
We can't escape it. There's no
But
way.
for me, I found that like if I don't go get some sort of like elevated exercise in the morning, it really like makes my day worse.
Yeah, it sets you up nicely for the day.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel that way about like taking walks and stuff and whatnot. And I have felt that way about exercise in my life. So like face value, I get it. I understand why people like it.
Yeah. As Lauren said, sometimes the social aspect became a little culty or it gets compared to that. There was actually an Atlantic article among other articles that made the comparison between CrossFit and religion. So as religion has sort of decreased among younger people, the article sort of says that people look to CrossFit or for other forms of exercise or group community to find that.
It's a salient point, the Atlantic.
Gym affiliates have to write an essay about why and how they plan to represent CrossFit.
Oh.
And many of those also show sort of religious sentiments. I'll just read a couple, for example.
I was about to say my kingdom to read one.
CrossFit means understanding that fitness is a journey, recognizing where you are on that path and understanding how to move forward on that path as long as life allows you to. As a coach and gym owner, it means teaching people these things, empowering them to have the same control over their physical destiny that I do.
Oh, okay.
Manifest destiny of your body. It means sharing everything I've gotten out of CrossFit with as many people as I can. So on reading that, I think I agree with some of it, but some of the like, I want to share my body gains with everyone very quickly could lead to you projecting onto everyone around you that they should also be the way you are.
Yeah, for sure. Also, I don't know. It's all very vague. Like it's kind of vague. It's like, once again, I hate being this way. I really do. But I can't help but be like, are you just happy because you look conventionally hot now? Like, is this what's bringing you this level of like euphoric religious devotion?
Yeah.
I'm only speaking from personal experience, honestly.
The last thing I mentioned about their business model was that they had sort of the games portion of it.
Oh, yeah.
And that is referring to the CrossFit Games. Ever since 2007, they've been doing like a tournament of CrossFitters where they basically get together top CrossFit athletes and then make them do an unknown WOD sort of workout and compete against each other, like throw anything at you. That's also a big thing about CrossFit is there's this sort of doomsday prepper vibe to it, in that the variety of workout gets sort of branded as like, be ready for anything.
Yeah.
Like anything could happen, so your body will be ready for that. And not too far beneath that is sort of a tone of like, and if the world goes to shit, you'll be fitter than your neighbor and you'll be able to beat them out.
Well, I mean, even when she was talking, he was like, okay, when it comes to, she was saying like, when it comes to cycling, he's probably like a faster cycler. And it's like, what do you think is going to happen?
All this comparison, yeah. I'm going to play a little video part of it that just talks about the founding of the CrossFit Games, so you can get an idea of the sort of like ragtag hippie vibe at the start.
In 2007, a handful of friends gathered together for the first ever CrossFit Games. It was a simple backyard barbecue on a ranch in Aromas, California, and along with burgers and beer, a serious test of fitness was served. In total, 123 athletes of all ages threw down in 3 workouts.
That was a
designed to
child.
test all aspects of fitness. Staying true to CrossFit's unknown and unknowable moniker, one of the workouts was designed by pulling various elements from a hopper. At the end of the weekend, the title of Fittest on Earth was awarded to James Fitzgerald and Jolie Gentry. In 2008, the Woodstock vibe of the CrossFit Games continued to grow as throngs of people gathered back at the ranch for a weekend of competition. Over the course of 2 days, the field of competitors battled it out in 4 classic CrossFit events with the tagline of "Every second counts."
I'm assuming there's overlap. Some of these people have been on American Ninja Warrior, right? Like,
I didn't look into that, but
I
probably.
feel like the unknown that CrossFit is preparing you for is whatever course you get on American Ninja Warrior. Don't you think?
CrossFit's just prepping the entire nation for American Ninja Warrior. We got to look into the finances.
Like, if we're gonna go out. If we're going to follow the logic here and say that CrossFit prepares you for the unknowns in life, it's preparing you for like an obstacle course that you get filmed while doing that you don't know about in advance. Also, I have an inkling you're going to get to something like this because you're going to know that I want to hear it. But I'm just thinking like, this is a group of like young, physically fit adults. Is there going to be some hooking up?
I don't know. So in 2011, the games adopted an online qualification format, allowing people worldwide to essentially like submit videos and be a part of the open, as they call it. And that is like an attempt to essentially globalize this one competition and be like the biggest fitness competition in the world.
Okay.
And they kind of did that and sort of made it a more global thing where you could qualify. Actually, the CrossFit Games were hosted in Madison, Wisconsin.
Really?
At the Alliant Energy Center a bunch of years.
That's interesting.
And it was after I'd left there, and then I saw
okay.
that they were hosting it there.
That's funny.
Now, we'll get to the fun part, which is a section I have labeled The Trouble with CrossFit and Greg Glassman.
Okay, great.
First of all, there's the issue of how the workout itself has been criticized. And again, don't care how you do what you do for workout.
Yeah, let's just check in again. If you love CrossFit, that's fine.
This is just internet criticism and things that I read that kind of blew up about the workout itself. The main criticism is one that probably you could apply to most workout programs. If it's done wrong or too intensely, it can cause issues, physical problems. And because these gyms have these affiliate programs with people having to go through a relatively small amount of training, anyone who's just like a buff, strong person could start a gym without really knowing how to teach it properly.
Right.
And that improper form filters down to members of the box and people are, ruining their muscles.
Their bodies. Yeah.
And if they do it too intensely, it can cause rhabdomyolysis.
Oh, no.
Which is that how you say it?
Yeah, that's how you say it. It's like when you get like over dehydrated, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is a sort of condition that has been associated with CrossFit over the years.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. CrossFit actually uses the possibility of getting rhabdo as kind of an advertisement that the workout is good in this fucked up sort of way.
I don't like
that. Like people started getting what they call rhabdo from over exerting themselves and basically having their, I think, kidneys and different functions shut down, or muscle tissue gets into the bloodstream or something. That's like what it is.
Yeah.
And you like pee like brown.
Yeah.
And it's basically
scary.
your body is shutting down.
I mean, it makes sense because the inception of this was, oh my God, I just worked out so hard that I barfed.
Yep.
And there was excitement about that.
Yeah. And I wrote down that it's like when like opioids are so strong that they kill people, and then drug addicts want those drugs because they're like, this is like an ad for how strong this is.
Right.
That's the same mentality here. People are drawn to the fact that they could like, overexert themselves and get this thing is almost like a point of pride.
I'm going to work out so hard, I'm going to go to the hospital.
Yeah. And this has been sort of a critique of it because like, oh my God, how can you do this? And people actually created like mascots that, intense CrossFitters have sort of used as like motivation or symbols of CrossFit, and one of them is like the rhabdo clown.
Nope.
I'm showing you this. It's like a clown bleeding out with like heart
Is he on it?
monitors.
Oh, I thought that was a dialysis machine.
Yeah, it is, I think.
Oh my God.
And he's like hooked up and dying, and like it's like this clown mascot tattoo looking thing.
This is a motivational tool? And not
it's like a badge of honor or pride.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
I don't like that at all.
So like certain fringe or whatever members have sort of
Yeah.
almost leaned into how dangerous the workout can be
Yeah.
if done wrong or too hard.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where in Virginia, a man actually won a lawsuit against a CrossFit affiliate for this. And as you mentioned earlier, CrossFit was never implicated in this because
course not.
the way the contract was structured, the gym affiliate was to blame for doing the workout too hard, not what they were teaching.
It's just our name. All they paid us for was the name.
So a man got a $300,000
Damages.
Yeah, $300,000 in damages for, essentially disabling him and getting rhabdo.
I mean, fair.
Yeah, CrossFit. I'm looking at an article here. CrossFit, which was not named as a defendant in the suit,
Oh my God.
is a fitness program popular with law enforcement and military circles, and it's been criticized for being overly dangerous and intense. So that is one big criticism of the workout. Okay, so the next major criticism of this organization is criticism of Greg Glassman, the founder himself.
Okay.
And
But why?
and Greg Glassman has a history of misogyny and verbal and sexual abuse of women. And aside from the workout itself, he sort of gained a reputation around the CrossFit offices for encouraging and participating in shitty behavior toward women.
I'm just applauding the way you set this all up. You were like, let's introduce you to this man. And then at the end of that video, he was like, why do you think they name hurricanes after women? Because women ruin your life. And I was just like,
Yeah, the seed of a problem with women that Greg Glassman has.
You don't just say something like that unless you're a bad person.
There was a New York Times article that came out in 2020 for reasons that I'll get to in a second.
Okay.
And it highlighted some of the specifics reported by former employees and those with close ties to the organization. I'm going to have you read a little passage from that article that just sort of talks about some of the things that Glassman was accused of in the office.
Interviews with 8 former employees and 4 CrossFit athletes with strong ties to the company reveal a management culture rife with overt and vulgar talk about women, their bodies, how much male employees, primarily Mr. Glassman, would like to have sex with them, and how lucky the women should feel to have his rabid interest. Ugh, I'm going to barf from reading this. Too hard. According to the dozen interviewed, Mr. Glassman, 63, has verbally demeaned women, pulled at their clothes to try to peek at their cleavage, and aimed his phone's camera to snap photos of their breasts while they traveled with him for work, sometimes pressuring them to consider sharing hotel rooms or borrowed houses with him. Through a company's spokesman and spokeswoman, Mr. Glassman denied such conduct. What a surprise. The spokeswoman said that Mr. Glassman has treated her only respectfully. Really? The spokeswoman said that? She suggested that people speaking out against Mr. Glassman are doing so to lessen the worth of his company and then buy it from him. Quote, there is a collective effort to devalue the company and buy it for scraps, she said. The former employees say reporting the harassment was not an option. Mr. Glassman is the sole owner of CrossFit, Inc. Perhaps the most powerful female executive there, Kathy Glassman, the affiliate director, is Mr. Glassman's sister, and they were reluctant to complain to her. There was no human resources manager until 2013. That manager left the company in January and has not been replaced.
Yes. So that's some details from the New York Times article that came out in 2020, highlighting some of the...
There's nothing that gets me heated faster than companies without HR managers. Seriously, it really pisses me off.
And we've had our share of encounters with those types of orgs and
we
friends
sure
of ours.
Have. Oh, yes. Yes, we have. I'm just not even remotely surprised. And of course, you wouldn't want to complain to a powerful female executive who's the owner's sister.
It always is.
Yes. Yes.
Family, like these types of businesses, especially like small businesses, you run into family affairs where you can't really complain to anyone because they all are linked by blood.
And it's either by blood or it's the kind of toxic company that is like, everyone here is family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you're like, I don't feel like family.
Yeah, you just tried to take a photo of me down my shirt.
That's not, none of my family members have ever done that. Yeah.
So this sort of misogynistic attitude was so entwined with the operations. This is another quote from this article later on. The attitude was so entwined with the operations that the Wi-Fi password at the company office in San Diego used to be a sexist obscenity, according to 3 former employees. And it didn't list it in the article, but I went on Reddit and I found a CrossFitter Reddit that was talking about this article.
The Wi-Fi password at CrossFit HQ San Diego was, quote, wet pussy. Comment, oh, what the fuck? That's so gross. How did anyone think that was okay? Next comment, me reading the post. Damn, I bet the Wi-Fi password said bitch or something, but I suppose it depends on the context. Me reading this. Oh, ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So imagine going to work every day and having that be so entwined that like Wi-Fi passwords are caught up in the boss's
and then
misogyny.
You like rationalize it. You're like, well, I only have to put the Wi-Fi password into my laptop and my phone once.
And then it saves it.
And then you get like an iPad for the holidays or something. And you're like, God fucking damn it.
New employee comes in. I just need to get my iPad on the Wi-Fi network.
Can you imagine? Oh my God. Just give me your phone. I'll type it.
One other little anecdote from this article that I want to mention before we get further is a little story from Andi Stumpf, who was this guy that was sort of a CrossFit employee at the higher up and worked in the office. And he kind of became a little bit of a whistleblower of this stuff. So that's probably why he talked to the New York Times for this.
Sure.
Also that year, Mr. Glassman was being driven to the airport by Andi Stumpf, a former Navy SEAL with 5 Bronze Star medals and a Purple Heart, who oversaw CrossFit Inc.'s partnership with Reebok and also worked as Mr. Glassman's pilot. We were in the car and he was chuckling, said Mr. Stumpf in an interview. I asked why he was in such a good mood and he said, I finally finished up with the bullshit with Julie. I had to pay that whore. So this is referring to a woman who filed a lawsuit against Glassman for some of these behaviors.
Yeah. You can just see what a bad guy this guy is because he got in legal trouble for being a misogynist. And his response is, yeah, I just had to pay that whore. So we learned nothing.
Yeah. And I'm going to have you read one more quote. And this is from Lauren Janai. She and Glassman actually had like a really messy divorce and they did end up splitting up between 2009 and 2013. It like all that carried on.
I can infer what some of their marital problems might have been.
And yeah, I'll just have you read this.
Ms. Janai said that the vulgar Wi-Fi password was also used in the home she shared with Mr. Glassman and was in keeping with the office patois. Quote, they are nasty about women and they talk freely in front of them and it does make my skin crawl, she said, but not always. Quote, I think it does need to be said that both Greg and I and our friends have raw senses of humor. There is a lot of that banter that I don't find offensive, but the difference was I was in a position of leadership, so my job didn't depend on how I responded to those remarks. I don't fully agree with this woman, and I don't have respect for everything about her, but I do have respect for the fact that she publicly was willing to recognize that, like, I had an easier time with this horrible work environment because I was in a leadership position. And I think that's a huge, huge difference. I was in a similar environment in a comedy group many years ago. And the man in charge, who I will not name, got in public trouble for a very similar kind of workplace environment and behavior. I say workplace because we were very poorly paid, but we were paid. And it was a similar kind of situation where it was like always passed off as like, we have like really like blue, dirty senses of humor and we're all laughing at it. Like, I can't tell you how many times the women involved in this were told to our faces, like, you think this is funny because you're part of this situation.
Yeah, even when you don't.
You know, and we were all in our 20s and we're not in positions of leadership or power. So I appreciate that she acknowledged that.
Yes. So this New York Times article that we've been reading from 2020 about CrossFit and the problems with it actually came out for a different reason, not just because of the misogyny in the workplace.
2020.
That was added on to it. And the top of the article, I'm just going to read give some clarity to that. I sort of ordered it differently so we would get to this part later. But when Greg Glassman resigned earlier this month as chief executive of CrossFit Inc.,
Oh, wow.
excoriated for comments about George Floyd's death on Twitter and in a Zoom meeting, people who have worked there were surprised that this downfall was tied to accusations of racism. They had assumed that the reason that he would be taken down would be routine and rampant sexual harassment.
Oh my God.
So
what a wild thing to have someone say about you of like, we really all thought you were going to get fired for sexual harassment, but you got fired for racism. That's crazy.
So this is a little news clip from CNA on YouTube that I found.
Well, more fallout in the business community after George Floyd protests, as we heard there. The founder and CEO of fitness company CrossFit stepping down over a controversial tweet posted about the incident. Greg Glassman was called out after tweeting it's Floyd-19 in response to a post about racism and discrimination as public health issues. In a Zoom call with CrossFit gym owners, he also said neither he nor his staff were mourning Mr. Floyd. Glassman later apologized, saying he had made a mistake with the words he chose, but it was too little too late. Reebok announced that it would end its partnership with CrossFit. Many CrossFit affiliate gyms also cut ties with the brand.
There's no better proof that feminism needs to be intersectional with all the other fights against injustice than one shitty white guy, because you're like, I bet if I turn over the other side of the rock, this part of the rock is anti-woman. I bet if I turn it over, it's going to be racist on the other side too.
Yeah. So I'm going to play you little snippets from that Zoom call that was mentioned in that news story.
Yeah.
So basically what happened here, to set it up, he tweets and he's getting criticized around that time for being insensitive to the George Floyd stuff. And then he has a Zoom call around this time to talk about sort of COVID-19 protocols and the reaction that CrossFit's going to have to COVID-19 George Floyd protests. And he just kind of goes off the rails, and BuzzFeed News made a little chopped up version of this call to try to maintain the anonymity of the person who gave it to them, because someone like blew the whistle and sent in this internal Zoom call to BuzzFeed News. I'm just going to play you Greg Glassman.
We're not mourning for George Floyd. I don't think me or any of my staff are. It's been under investigation from the FBI for almost a decade for laundering counterfeit money. And it's very interesting that George gets popped with counterfeits, and who comes but the head of security from the dance club. It's very interesting. Watch, this thing's going to turn into first-degree murder. That's what it's going to turn into. And it's going to be because I'm predicting this, because we have friends in the FBI in your neighborhood. And they're of the view that this was first-degree murder, and it was to silence him over the counterfeit money. That's the belief. That's what the cops think. Have you heard that before? And that's why you were sent indoors. It had nothing to do with the fucking virus. That's the excuse. It was a panic, absolute panic, right from the start. And I think it's inevitable that it's going to turn out that this has cost way more lives than have been saved. Way more. No, you know, at some point you got to do what's right, and it may not come with approval. It may not be seen as the right thing to do, but you still have to do it. That's the burden. Yeah. I was asked by the Italians, what would you do, coach? And I said, I would agree to any restrictions put on me by the health authorities, and I would open my gym, and then 10 minutes later, I'd do whatever the fuck I wanted. That's what I would do.
Yeah. So I'm glad to see that he wasn't any more of a public speaker on that call. Still stumbling a lot, but yeah, basically peddling conspiracy theories to his global team.
Yeah, this guy sucks. And I feel like at this point, you would have to be incredibly stupid to be a higher up or any member of this organization and not think this guy sucks.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like in these situations, what ends up happening is that like all of the people who are not Greg Glassman are just like, yeah, he's fucking crazy and we all hate him, but like he's in charge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
These comments though actually did set a lot of people.
Oh, I'm sure.
off.
And rightfully so.
They did not play well. The Zoom, the tweet, all that. People
No.
started to run from Glassman and CrossFit.
Yeah, because he's a bad guy and he also can't help himself. Like, he wants attention so badly and he thinks he's right so much that he can't just keep his stupid, harmful opinions to himself.
And make all his money from his super successful workout plan.
Because I
And just shut up.
guarantee you that there were people in the organization who are like, you know what, as long as it is like an internally known, well kept from the public secret that he's just a total fucking horrible person, as long as only we know that and like we can tolerate it, it's fine. But I'm sure there were people who cut and run because for some reason they were surprised by this. And then there were people who were like, okay, well, it was fine when it was internal. Now that everybody knows, I can't be seen with this.
So at this point in the process of learning about this, I turned to YouTube to kind of look for reactions or maybe if people had more intel. And actually, I came across Andi Stumpf, that former, Navy SEAL guy who drove him around, drove Glassman around. And he has a podcast called Cleared Hot. And I'm going to play a little clip.
So my response to, when people ask me, what do I think about what's going on this week? The best response that I can give you is that I'm actually surprised that it has taken this long. I cannot count the number of times that derogatory and specifically sexual comments were made about female staff members directly in my presence. It was an open secret as to who was potentially in the sexual crosshairs for Greg. And whether that manifested in uncomfortable travel arrangements as for female staff members traveling with Greg and a trip is coming up but only one hotel room is booked, or female employees sitting alone in a vehicle with the CEO being told what Greg prefers from his women. I'm going to give one more example. Imagine a female employee that had spent already plenty of time in Greg's crosshairs. And I say that based off of what I saw, what I heard, and comments made directly to me from Greg. She happens to be in a relationship with a deployed service member, and Greg inquires about that service member and finds out that he is currently forward deployed overseas. His response to that information directly to this employee was, let's hope that we get to name a hero WOD after him soon. And for people who don't know what a hero WOD is, that's a workout that is named after somebody who was killed in service of their country overseas or law enforcement first responder here in the United States.
I was trying to be objective at the beginning when you played me that video of this fucking guy, Greg Glassman, I mean. And I think I even did say, like, he seems like overall, like, fine or whatever. I just knew in my gut. I just know.
One of the themes of this podcast is I set you up with a guy who seems like he might be okay. And then you're like, oh, he seems fine. And then by the end, you're like, I have to make a disclaimer. I don't like him.
I try to come in with an open mind.
No,
and also, you have to. But I know. You just know. A woman knows.
So as I mentioned, Glassman's tweet and the Zoom call were widely panned, and many CrossFit affiliate gyms around the world responded by ending their affiliations. And this just sort of made him spiral even more. And then he lost his Reebok sponsorship, which is like sponsoring all the like events and things like that. I wanted to just show you a little example of one of his sort of exchanges with someone who tried to disaffiliate. So there was an email exchange, and that's what I'm going to read from. Okay, this is from Morning Chalk Up. It's a CrossFit sort of blog.
Okay.
On June 3rd, Alyssa Royce, owner of Rocket Community Fitness, formerly Rocket CrossFit, a 9-year affiliate, wrote a letter to the chief advisor at CrossFit. In the letter, Royce stated that Rocket CrossFit will be changing our name to Rocket Community Fitness and likely disaffiliating from CrossFit when it's time to renew. CrossFit founder and CEO Greg Glassman responded to the letter. Some details from the letter. Royce wrote, the George Floyd murder threw our country into massive unrest. CrossFit is the only major brand that I can think of that has failed to take a stand, make a statement, show support for social justice in general, and Black lives in specific, she continued. While I fully understand that you may feel like you're in a tough spot, there are easy ways out of it. Let's be clear, your silence is taking a stand. You are standing in the silence on the side of history that Brady and I cannot stand on. I guess that's her co-founder. In response, Glassman wrote, I sincerely believe that quarantine has impacted your mental health.
Oh my
He continued,
God.
You're doing your best to brand us as racist and you know it's bullshit. It makes you a really shitty person. Do you understand that? You've let your politics warp you into something that strikes me as wrong to the point of being evil. I am ashamed of you. So this woman's sort of trying to reach out and be like, hey, I have a real problem with this. We think we're going to disaffiliate, and didn't even necessarily say she was going to. And then his response just made her definitely do that.
Yeah, of course, because she probably like agonized over this email because it's a very hard thing to write under any circumstance. And he's a known bad person and kind of a loose cannon. And I can only imagine the number of times that she drafted this with her like gym partner and like read through it and edited it and whatever. And then like, of course, she gets a response that's like, you're just a shitty fucking person who's mentally ill from quarantine.
So on June 9th, 2020, actually before the New York Times article explaining everything came out, and during all of this, Glassman resigned as CEO, and then 2 weeks later, he put the company up for sale. So that's kind of how his tenure with CrossFit ends. Today, CrossFit is still thriving, though a lot of affiliates did leave. It's actually growing more overseas than it is in the US, where people may have sort of soured on it a little more.
Yeah. The way this mirrors a lot of things in a lot of other industries, including the performing arts in Chicago, is just what a time we're living through where like people who do bad things are actually being taken to task for them. Not enough, but somewhat, a little bit. And then we just get to see these people who for years were just on top of the world. They had so much money, whatever. We get to see them just have a total fucking temper tantrum meltdown publicly in front of everyone, where all of us are like, oh my God, you were out of your mind.
Yeah.
I also can't even imagine his legal team must have been like, stop opening your mouth.
Yeah. All right. So that's the story of CrossFit and its problematic founder. We hope you enjoyed that episode. We might do more sort of workout related episodes in the future because they all have a story.
I could speak at length about Beachbody.
Oh, yeah, there's
Talk
a whole...
about Reddit. Like there's man. Thank you so much for listening or watching or however you are experiencing us. Reminder that if you really are enjoying the show, please give us a rating on whatever app you are using, Apple, Spotify, or otherwise. It really, really helps the show quite a bit. And if you want to support the show and get even more episodes, we do have a Patreon. That's patreon.com/SKDKpod.
And we will see you next time.
Hurricane Andi is coming. I don't know what that means.
Bye.